Welcome members, officers, honorary alderpersons and any members of the public viewing at home this evening's extraordinary council meeting. Please be seated. Just a few housekeeping. There is no fire drill planned for this evening. If there is a fire alarm sounds, please make your way from the chambers using either the fire escape to my right or via the staircase in the lobby outside the chambers. Please can I also ask you to ensure your mobile phones are switched either off or silent, please. Thank you. Thank you. Apologies for absence. Ms Willis, may I have the apologies for absence, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've received apologies from Councillor Alan Ashbury, Councillor Louise Ashbury, Councillor Johnny Cope, Councillor Mark Gordon and Councillor Bob Rakes. And also, in addition, we have Councillor Jacques Ormeau, Councillor Leanne McIntyre and Councillor Emma Jane McGrath joining virtually, but they won't be able to vote.
Thank you. Before we start, I just want to wish everybody a Happy New Year. I know it's a bit late, but hope you all had a very nice festive break. Agenda item 2. Declaration of interest. Do any members of any disclosable pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest to declare in relation to the matters which are to be considered at this meeting? Thank you. Item 3, motion. Before I ask for the members to move the motion on the agenda, I would like to ask the Chief Executive to provide an introduction to the Government's devolution white paper and current discussion with other Surrey authorities. The Chief Executive has been asked to give this summary to help our understanding of this subject, as it is still quite new information and we might not all have the same knowledge of the subject. There are also lots of discussions that are currently ongoing with other Surrey authorities. Nick, to provide the introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Forgive me from reading from the paper, there's quite a lot to cover. I won't go over the document that's within the agenda pack, but I will provide a brief summary. So, essentially, the government wants to simplify the current tiered models of local government. Their preferred model consists of strategic authorities. These are ideally strategic mayoral authorities responsible for strategic administration and where most powers are devolved, such as transport and infrastructure. The ideal size for a strategic authority is a population of around 1.5 million. Beneath this, there will be principal authorities. These are classified as unitary authorities, ideally of a population of around 500,000 plus. But government will consider alternative sizes where there are good arguments. The intention of this reform is to improve accountability and to deliver a local authority system that is close enough to the communities to reflect them, but be of a sufficient size to deliver improved efficiency and robust enough to withstand financial shocks. Government are clear they want to move quickly and they've set a deadline of the 10th of January 2025 for authorities to opt into the devolution priority programme, which commits to mayoral devolution and elections by May 2026. We've been told that ministers will set out the terms for unitisation by the end of this month and ask for interim plans by the end of March. The intention is for new unitaries to be in place by either April 2027 or April 2028. On a local government reorganisation webinar yesterday, which we attended, Baroness Taylor was clear in her view that devolution and unitisation needs to happen and will happen. The choice that we have is around influencing how it is shaped and pace. You'll be aware of the exceptional cabinet that occurred at Surrey County Council today. County intend to write to request a postponement of the election scheduled for May 2025 to allow a fast-track devolution, essentially the devolution priority programme, to take place, which would mean that Surrey could be in the first wave of devolution deals taking effect from 2027. The district and borough leaders are mostly of the view that the elections should take place from May 2025 as the political landscape has changed substantially since 2021 when the last county elections in Surrey took place. The district and borough leaders feel that elections would not impede preparations for devolution and authorisation, and interim plans could still be submitted in March this year with a more detailed proposal submitted in the autumn. The second point of disagreement in relation to the discussions between County Council and the districts and boroughs at a meeting yesterday afternoon was the pace of change. And there is some disagreement there with Surrey County Council wishing to change at pace, but a differing view between districts and boroughs, some wishing to move fast and others wanting to take a more informed approach. Lastly, there's no fixed opinion on how many unitary authorities there would be in Surrey. Surrey County Council's initial view was that 2 would be appropriate, whereas the majority of district and borough leaders favour 3 without any specific agreement on grouping. There was agreement yesterday that any steering group to dictate the future unitary makeup would be made up of all 24 leaders and chief executives, therefore 11 from the districts and boroughs, and also the leader and chief executive from the County Council. Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's my summary.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. If you do have any questions you would like an officer to clarify during the debate, please raise your hand and ask to raise a point of clarification. This won't affect your right to speak on a motion in line with the usual procedure rules. I would like to ask Councillor Sean MacDonald to move his motion. Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to propose this motion and reserve the right to speak.
Do you have a seconder?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to second this motion.
Councillor MacDonald, would you like to speak to your motion? Oh, sorry. Apologies. Sorry.
Could I ask a question first? Could I ask that standing orders be conned so that we don't have to stand up each time and then we can speak more than once on this debate? I don't know if anybody's agreement with that.
Okay. Would you like to propose a seconder? Yeah. Yeah, that's agreed.
Is that agreed?
Oh, sorry. Is that agreed, members? Right. Okay, Councillor MacDonald, would you like to speak to your motion? Is that right?
Thank you, Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to wish everyone, officers and members alike, good health and well-being for the new year ahead. Slán Jabbar. I am also acutely aware that this is not the case for all, so I'm sure all members would want to wish one of our area county councillors, his family and friends, resilience and strength at this challenging time for all. I'd also like to continue by thanking you for making the time. Hang on, have we had a seconder? Did you second?
I did second.
You did second, that's fine. Did you? I don't have to stand up, do I?
No, standing. You don't have to stand. It just means you can speak.
I'm going to stand. I'll let it go this time. Thank you.
Apologies.
I've forgotten what you said, Councillor White, that you said about sustaining the standing up as well. Yeah, but I forgot that bit. But I'm going to keep going anyway.
Cool.
So I'd also like to continue by thanking you for making your time to come tonight to debate important and indeed unexpected matters, given the timing and scope of the White Paper release before Christmas and the gap in signalling from the government manifesto preceding it. As you will appreciate, requesting an extraordinary council was not a decision taken trivially. Conscious of pushing another evening meeting into already busy diaries, and taking more time away from your home life. So it was only with the counsel of the Chief Executive that it was appropriate in this case that I approached the Mayor, whose approval I am grateful for. I am also mindful of the impact on officers, so tonight's date was specifically chosen with their work demands in mind. Can I take a moment to thank Ms Willis for her dedicated support in ensuring papers were published in good time and order, despite the closed period. I'm sure all members continue to be in awe at your commitment to go the extra mile for democracy. In the same spirit, I'm sure all members will be aware of the uncertainty the government's unexpected announcements in the White Paper have caused our committed staff, especially right before Christmas and on the back of a substantially weakened financial position uncovered in the autumn. I know members would want to thank them for their stoicism in this situation, ongoing dedication to providing residents excellent service and support, as well as providing reassurance that, like most things involving government, this will all take a lot of time before we fully understand the implications. I know the Chief Executive and senior team will ensure frequent, transparent and timely communications continue, which is something we discussed yesterday at the Surrey Leaders Level 2. As you will also have noted that the Chief Executive took the time to summarise the issues in hand in the cover report, also in the closed period, to support members' understanding as best as possible to enable a positive, thoughtful debate tonight. You have just heard a summary of that report and our ongoing discussions across Surrey with stakeholders, during which he has been active in the foreground and background for the Council. I know I am personally in his debt for taking this on and other dedicated support on important matters throughout the period, and I'm sure all members are most grateful for his professionalism despite the challenging time of year. Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Members, moving on. Despite a lack of manifesto signalling, the current government, which as we know has a huge parliamentary majority on just 34% share of the vote, maybe it's time for PR, I hear some of you say, has set out its agenda for change through devolution of powers and funding to mayor-led strategic authorities at regional or sub-regional level, ideally of greater than 1.5 million people, and to move to unitary authorities of over 500,000 residents. Effectively, this means merging county and borough responsibilities, then dividing them into a number of sub-regional areas as unitaries, much like metropolitan areas such as London, Birmingham and Manchester today. To give you a feeling, only 11 unitary councils exist at this greater than 500,000 scale now envisaged, and it's places like Liverpool or all of Wiltshire which have a distinct physical geography and community identity. Unfortunately, the government has failed to be clear on what the overall map for mayoral strategic authority should be, nor provided the vision for town and parish councils to fill the massive community intimacy gap that's being created through this change, or provided important answers to how things like Surrey's 5 billion debt, of which 1 billion will never be recovered from Woking, will be handled to avoid failure of any new authorities from day one. The government have made statements that these changes are to drive more efficiencies, reduce politicians, and unlock growth, particularly through associated planning changes, whilst maintaining regional and area identities, as well as providing high-quality public services. Personally, I don't have a problem with the principle of strategic mayoral authorities at scale and appropriately sized unitary authorities, based on economic zones, physical geography, and most importantly, maintaining a real sense of place and community identity for residents. As an example, have you ever asked a Cornish person their thoughts on people from across the Tamar, or vice versa, or asked a Liverpudlian about Wirral folk across the Mersey? And that's before we go more local to Chobham, Burrow Hill, and the Millbourne. I'm sure at least one of you will have views on these differences. I'm also concerned we will end up with more full-time job career politicians rather than the range of community warriors we have today, like those in this chamber, passionate about their locality and able to fit in supporting them on casework around their other work and domestic life responsibilities. This is a real risk and downside of what is planned, that the personal and local connections are lost. I believe strongly a feeling of place and community identity is crucially important in ensuring residents stay connected to their elected representatives and vice versa. And thus I am appalled by the thought of a monster 1.2 million people unitary across Surrey, 2 mega 0.6 million unitary authorities, or indeed almost all the options I have seen speculated about for Surrey Heath, that would, for example, see Windlesham in with Sunbury over the Thames. And I am therefore against rushing headlong into any process not well thought through, which is what the leader of Surrey County Council is proposing following meetings earlier today. Structure should always follow strategy, and it is vital we understand the regional map and the financial framework before working through collaboratively within Surrey and beyond how best to organise our strategic authority area for residents through appropriately sized and situated unitaries. Surrey County Council's leader is able to make this undemocratic request as the current government's process is weak and the implications of change not well thought through, blinded by an overwhelming desire to proceed at pace, even though it may be the wrong direction. Better a moment on the curb than a month in hospital was my mother's saying. We need time to do our homework and fresh eyes on this, both the pros and the cons. I, for one, don't want the £833 per person in Surrey added to my council tax for Woking's multi-year property casino binge outing. Perhaps other members and residents of Surrey Heath do. I doubt it. The government has asked leaders of any top-tier authorities that have consensus in their area on the plan for devolution and local government reform and wish to be on the fast-track programme to write to them by this Friday, close of business, to request county council elections are cancelled in May 2025. Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner yesterday stated that the government was not telling local authorities to cancel elections. It was entirely their choice, though she went on to mislead as to how long it would be before existing members would leave office. Any new unitary authority on the fast-track programme would not go live for at least 24 months and potentially longer. It's a government pilot programme after all. This means the leader of Surrey County Council, with less than 4 months on his 48-month term in office, can ask for the cancellation of elections covering 1.2 million people at his own whim due to their constitution and the use of executive powers only. We know in Surrey Heath what can happen when a leader and one other member uses special powers recklessly. Be warned, Surrey. In the process, he and his cabinet will be assured of another 2 years of substantial allowances. Members not approved by his own party to be fit and proper will stay in place, and many members from all sides who have decided to stand down in 2025 will stay in place like zombies. Is this really good for Surrey and Surrey Heath residents, being represented and advocated for properly? I keep asking myself. Or just convenient for a few focused on their own self-interest? It is a fact that the list of people across the world and across the decades, including here in Britain, that have either interfered with the democratic process or cancelled elections is not a great, select and auspicious club to be a member of. It is in fact quite the reverse, and I know many amongst our number have served our country and lost comrades on foreign fields, defending democracy against dictatorships, to protect our way of life, and to ensure all voters' voices are heard. I'm totally ashamed to think their sacrifice is being trodden on at the whim of a handful of county council leaders, including the leader of Surrey County Council, for their own benefit, with no recent mandate, in the face of unanimous rejection of this course of action from across all Surrey's districts and boroughs leaders of whatever political colour yesterday, including one of his own party, 2 independents and others in rainbow coalitions. Members, I trust the relevant government minister and the civil servant team supporting them will understand the strength of feeling coming from this council and reject any proposal the leader of Surrey County Council makes to cancel elections and join the fast-track programme. In the absence of wider consensus and joint financial framework for managing the huge debts in place by rejecting the leader of Surrey County Council's application out of hand, applying their own go-no-go criteria from government statements strictly, or it loses all credibility as a programme with residents before it starts. Members, I commend the motion to the Council to defend democracy and let Surrey vote in May 2025, whilst committing myself, the administration and the Council team to engage fully and constructively with central government, all Surrey local authority partners and potential regional partners in creating a positive future for Surrey Heath residents within the government's new governance approach as soon as practicable. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor MacDonald. Councillor Rice, would you like to speak on the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I would first like to wish you, members and officers, a happy new year. I hope that the festive period was relaxing for you all. I'm very happy to second this motion this evening. I firmly believe that postponing and cancelling elections is a dereliction of our duty as elected representatives. Our democracy is built on the principles of free and fair elections. It is the ultimate way for our residents to show their displeasure or support of those they elect, and it is through them that we achieve our mandate to deliver policies and change. This is the same principle for any elected organisation, whether it be Parliament, a mayor, police and crime commissioner, or even a county or borough council. It is that principle of democracy that binds us all together, that we uphold the institutions of democracy with all our might, no matter which political party we are members of or none. Elections are the cornerstone of that democracy. Regular, free and fair elections where voters have the chance to set out the course for the decisions taken in their name. It is therefore undemocratic to seek the cancellation of elections just for expediency. It is undemocratic to reach the end of a term of office and say, we don't want to face the electorate right now because of a certain issue, so therefore we will ask for the elections not to take place. That, I believe, we can all agree on is undemocratic. It may feel innocuous to delay an election to the county council next year, but when you take a decision to deny the rights hard won by generations past, it becomes easier the next time. I am concerned that if we allow this decision to take place now, it could start us on a path where further decisions that erode our rights become much easier to take, especially when that decision is in the gift of a single person to request that cancellation. It is unjust and it is undemocratic. I want to make clear to all members that I am not opposed to local government reform and reorganisation. It has been over 50 years since the last substantive changes to local government organisation took place. Our society and country has moved on significantly since then, and I accept that the current model of local government needs review. What is important, however, is that real reform of local government takes time. It cannot and should not be rushed. The services that we deliver as councils are vital to so many people, and how those services are delivered into the future needs detailed scrutiny, not a rush to change a few boundaries and pat ourselves on the back for a job well done. The issues facing local government are numerous. Local government finance, the debt crisis within councils, social care, special educational needs, housing, planning, highways. Any real reform of these needs new solutions to them. The reason why I'm making these points is that I do not believe that true reform to local government can happen within a year. If we want successive councils to be able to operate effectively and efficiently, they need the time to be able to establish. Can all of these issues I set out be resolved within a year? I don't think so. So what happens then? A further delayed election? When would be too long? A further year? 2? 5? 10? The crisis of local government debt is an issue that must be tackled. We need only look to Woking for the absolute state they are in financially. Even closer to home, we have our own debt problems in Surrey Heath that need addressing. The government's white paper sets out no trajectory for how these issues will be addressed in any meaningful or fair manner. Is it fair that under a new authority, a new unitary authority, residents that find themselves with Woking or with Surrey Heath and many others are then responsible for the debt that they will bring in with them, where they have had no part of those decisions at all. That's not fair. Local government reform must place the interests of our residents at its heart, not the interests of politicians in Westminster, Reigate, or even in Camberley. It must address their concerns, and cancelling the elections in May steals that right of all voters to give their position on this issue. I urge all members to uphold the rights of democracy that we all enjoy. We should defend democracy and let Surrey vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rice. I would like to invite members to discuss the motion and make any comments. Who would like to start? Okay. Ms Noble, and then Councillor White.
Thank you, Mayor. In recent weeks, I've driven through Runnymede, the site 810 years ago of the signing of the Magna Carta in 1215. The Magna Carta influenced the development of constitutional law, human rights, and democracy in England and ultimately other countries. In 1903, Emmeline Pankhurst founded the Women's Social and Political Union, leading to the deaths of many women, including Emily Wilding Davison, who in 1913 threw herself in front of King George V's horse at the Epsom Derby. Between 1914 and 1945, 1 million people lost their lives defending our human rights and democracy. Many had passed through the army garrisons and hospitals within Surrey Heath and Surrey. This year, we will commemorate the 80th anniversary of those who gave their lives for our today and tomorrow, for freedom and for democracy. Runnymede is less than 40 miles from the Surrey County Council offices. Epsom is less than 10 miles from the Surrey County Council's offices. Purbright, Brookwood, Deepcut, Sandhurst, Aldershot, all less than 40 miles from Surrey County Council's offices. The area in which we live and work, in which our county council operates, sits at the very foundation of modern-day democracy as we know it. Each day, we see members of the UK Armed Forces in the streets of Camberley, people who devote their lives to defending our human rights and civilisation. We are privileged and owe so much to so many for their sacrifices to enable us to enjoy the freedoms and rights today. Yet what is being proposed removes that right for the people of Bisley and West End, my ward, of all the wards in Surrey Heath and Surrey, to have a say in the way in which democracy is exercised, local taxation is raised and services delivered. What is being proposed removes the rights of you, me, of everyone of voting age to democratically elect those who put themselves forward to serve their neighbours in local government. It doesn't postpone the May elections, it cancels them without a mechanism or timescale to reinstate our individual democratic rights. It gives one person the right to undo what over 1 million people died for. It takes away the rights of every single eligible resident to have their say at the ballot box. Irrespective of political party or none, I appeal to each member of this council to examine their conscience and to ask yourself, do I have the right to allow over 800 years of history, over 1 million deaths, to be put aside so one person can decide for our residents, ourselves and our families to cancel the May 2025 election and to continue to operate as Surrey County Council but without the people's mandate? If the answer is yes, then I hope you can live with that decision. But if the answer is no, please join me in voting for this motion to defend democracy and let Surrey vote.
Thank you, Councillor Noble. Councillor Whitcroft, David Whitcroft. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you all. I'm intending to move an amendment to the motion for reasons which I will explain in a moment, but it might be helpful if the changes to the motion which we're proposing can be seen by all members. So, as you will see, my army of assistants are handing out the amendment as I speak. You might think it's a bit strange that the administration will amend its own motion, but I would ask you to understand that events have moved very quickly over this matter. And as we've heard from the Chief Executive and the Leader of the Council, even up to today, events have been fluid. So the main motion needed to be lodged, obviously, before Christmas. So hopefully that explains why we are taking this rather unusual step of amending our own motion. Madam Mayor, I'm looking for your guidance, if I might. Do you want me to pause for a moment or two so members can...
Yes, please. Would you mind? Sorry.
Okay, thank you. If you could indicate when you're ready.
Just once the paper is handed out and everybody had the chance. Has everybody got one? Yeah, I'm just going to give you 2 minutes to fast read the amendment sheet. Do you need a bit more time? Okay, if everybody's ready. Right, we'll continue. Councillor David Whitcroft, would you like to continue? Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Mayor. Members will appreciate, I hope, that the fundamental essence of the motion remains unchanged, but a little more detail has been added as a result of the discussions and publicity which this matter has received since it first emerged. I'm not going to go through the changes individually. You've had the opportunity to see what they are, and I don't want to take up too much more time. The rationale for these changes, I hope, is probably self-evident. and I'm not going to take a lot of time in explaining them, but I will summarise them briefly. It's worth making the point that in its proposal so far, the County Council has undertaken virtually no consultation at all with Surrey districts and boroughs. This amendment ensures a proper partnership approach and also allows for consultation with non-Surrey authorities, which for us here in Surrey Heath recognises the potential importance of authorities within the Blackwater Valley. And these might be relevant in reaching further arrangements for Surrey Heath. I'm not going to dwell on the County Council leaders' proposals to cancel the May elections in much detail because that's already been covered by other speakers. I would add the point, though, that a newly elected council will be a representative of the up-to-date opinions of our residents when it comes to making the critically important decisions regarding the future of local government in Surrey. The County Council leader has unfortunately failed to explain how it makes sense for these decisions to be made by people elected in 2021 when it's perfectly feasible and scheduled for new members to be elected in May of this year. The new members will also bring a fresh approach to the critical question of reorganisation of local government in Surrey. Rather than, can I put it this way, that rather than reflecting the entrenched views, shall we say, of the current cohort of Surrey County councillors. The amendment also touches on the difficult position of our staff in a period of uncertainty for them. And one hopes that in the debate going forward, both within this chamber and elsewhere, the position of local authority staff, particularly here at Surrey Heath, will be dealt with sensitively because it is a very difficult position for them to be in at present times. I shan't dwell on the question of local authority debt management because, again, that's been mentioned by other speakers. But how can we possibly make sensible decisions about the future of local government in Surrey if the matter of the huge debt servicing problem is not dealt with? The government has got to give some indication of how this problem is going to be managed. Otherwise, we're all making decisions totally in the dark. The white paper is also fairly silent. It does touch upon the subject a few times about the future role of town and parish councils. And as we know, the parish councils play quite an important role, particularly in the rural part of Surrey Heath. So that's a matter which also needs to be clarified. Finally, I speak from bitter experience as a previous member of Surrey County Council back in the prehistoric times when the county chose to spend significant sums of public money in promoting its own position in respect of the unitary authority. And this amendment finally is aimed at preventing that from happening again. I commend the amendment to the Council, and I'm happy to deal with any questions or comments that members may have about it if I am allowed to sum up at the end of the discussion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder? Do you have a seconder? Thank you. Would you like to speak?
No.
Does anybody else would like to speak? On the amendment. Okay, so just to clarify, we are speaking on the amendment now. Okay. Councillor Kang, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I'm in support of the amendment. Let me just refer back to the letter that the Minister of State of Local Government and English Devolution sent on the 16th of December, where it said that the government's long-term vision is for simpler structures which make it much clearer for residents who they should look to on local issues. And further on, to help deliver these aims, we will facilitate local government reorganisation in England for two-tier areas and for unitary councils where there is evidence of failure. Now, the key word here is failure. Now, over the past years, and particularly 8 years, Surrey County Council has failed its residents. It's failed in adult care provisions, failed childcare and special educational needs and disability, failed to maintain highways. Not to mention failure to forward plan to prevent flooding of properties. Now, failure in any organisation comes down to bad decision making, which loses millions of essential revenue, which local council taxpayers pay for a good service. And when I say bad decisions, one example is the bad, reckless investment in property over the years. And Surrey County Council, if you look into have made bad decisions. Now, Surrey County Council has failed basically to provide all essential services to the residents. Now, most members of the current controlling administration at Surrey County Council have been elected since 2017. They've served 2 terms already. There are members there who've been since 2005, 20 years. Even the President of the USA only has 2 terms. So members of Surrey County Council have really failed their residents, their constituents. So County Council elections in May 2025, well, we'll have more of the same. There won't be any change. There'll be no new fresh ideas, no fresh blood. So the same failing cabinet administration at Surrey County Council. Is that what we want? What I see is that the failing Surrey County Council cabinet administration wishes to cling on to power. Now, members are elected to serve the residents, not put their interests first. So elections prevent the concentration of power in the hands of a few individuals, a few members. So my wish is that do not deny residents their democratic right to vote and hold their elected officials accountable. So keep the Surrey vote. That is my wish. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kang. Okay, Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to say that I'll accept the amendment from Councillor Whitcroft. Obviously, that's my sticky fingers all over it anyway, so just to get ahead of the game.
Members, does anybody else would like to speak on the amendment? Councillor Wheeler?
Actually, a point of order. I think if the, I believe that if the amendment is accepted, it then becomes the main motion anyway. So I don't think we're anymore talking about the original motion, because the amended motion, as it's been accepted by the original motionee, becomes a sustained or the substantive motion.
Just need a minute to check that. Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
It may just be that you need to withdraw your original motion or not.
Okay, I've got it here. I'm going to read it out. Alteration of motion 14.8. A member may, with the consent of the council, alter a motion of which he or she has given notice. The council's consent will be signified without discussion.
Good.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Just a point of clarification. Just to confirm, with the amendment accepted, we are now back to debating the substantive motion, which is the amended motion.
Yes, that's right. Does everybody agree? Right, okay. Right.
So we've got Councillor Quinn.
And then we've got Councillor Wheeler.
Yeah, yes, that's correct. And then Councillor Kane.
And then so far I've got Councillor Quinn,
Correct.
then Councillor Wheeler, and then Councillor Kang. Is that right? Oh, and Councillor Hull. Were you before Councillor Kang or?
No.
Does it matter?
That's fine.
Okay. Right, we'll let you. Councillor Quinn first, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to say thank you to our council officers for compiling the necessary information and organising this meeting over the Christmas period. I'm glad a meeting's been called to discuss these very timely and important developments, so thank you for making this happen. The motion before us reflects a critical moment in the evolution of local government. I really strongly welcome the government's ambition to devolve power away from Westminster and to local communities. We're one of the most centralised countries in the democratic world, and we really need to devolve powers to local communities. And I think we should take advantage of the opportunities offered by our new government, whilst obviously making sure that they deliver genuine benefits and reflect the local situation. Now, it's worth saying that my residents in St Michael's Ward have time and time again expressed frustration with Surrey County Council's track record, whether that's about the poorly maintained roads, the long delays in securing essential support for children with special educational needs, or most recently, concerns about the staffing of Camberley Fire Station, highlighted this week. There's a real sense that the County Council is failing to meet the needs of the people it serves. Therefore, given the local factors, especially in Camberley West and Frimley, where I think it's been referenced, where our local county councillor is suffering ill health and was planning to stand down, I do feel very concerned about the proposal from SCC to delay the May 2025 county elections. Many councillors at the county council wouldn't have been anticipating this 2-year extension to their term. They may choose to resign in the 2-year period, triggering costly by-elections. So I'm not sure if the cost savings anticipated by the county council have been fully clarified or have been fully realised. For example, have they had the time to survey their county councillors to see what they think about this? I don't believe they have done. But more importantly, the structure of local government in Surrey clearly needs change, and that's responsible for some of the failures that we've seen at the county council. These shortcomings make it clear that the status quo is no longer acceptable. Our residents deserve better. They deserve a simple process where they know how to hold their councillors accountable, and reform presents this real opportunity to address these issues and rebuild trust in local government. Therefore, I fully support the principle of creating unitary authorities, which offer the potential to simplify government structures and deliver services more efficiently. I strongly reject the proposal for a single unitary authority for all of Surrey. Such an arrangement would be too large, too impersonal, and too disconnected from our local communities. Finally, as part of the reorganisation, I would strongly support the establishment of a Camberley Town Council. And this is something that we can look at as a borough council now. We don't require any permission from from central government. A town council could be responsible for places like the London Road Recreation Ground or the Leisure Centre Places Leisure in my ward, ensuring that even more decision-making is made by residents who live in Camberley and have a personal stake in decisions. In conclusion, Mayor, I support the principles of devolution and unitary reform, and I look forward to continuing this debate and achieving a solution that works for our residents.
Thank you. Councillor Wheeler, please.
Thank you. Having all agreed that we wouldn't stand up, we're all standing up, aren't we? It's just the way that it goes. Old habits die hard. As the residents that we represent know, I don't support unitary authorities and actively campaigned as part of the independent councillors' unified opposition to the county's last attempt. That said, it is without a better understanding of the impact of parish and town councillors and their roles. It is evident that with the current government that unity authorities will happen, and the response of Surrey County Council is a direct response to the direction that has been set by the government. I would be more sympathetic to the leaders' arguments of local warriors if it wasn't the policy of all political parties to put forward candidates to secure majorities into areas representing areas that they do not live in. Our mayor and deputy mayor are good examples of this. Although I don't condone the postponement of the elections, given the timescales involved, I don't see how the change can be achieved if we have the elections in May, as it just leaves 2 months before the pre-election period starts, and then we face potentially new councillors, which we know from bitter experience often fail to bed in and to be effective instantly. I'm also concerned about the impact of not moving in the first phase, as we are condemning our officers to live with a sword of Damocles about their futures for a prolonged period of time, cancellation or postponement. The postponement of elections came about, I would assume, as a direct response to the letter that came from the government minister. It is also not the decision of a single person, but a 42-22 majority of the county, according to the elections that I watched this morning. The letter asked for the government to write off debt for this to happen, which is another point that is worth mentioning. I do, however, hope that the further to let Surrey vote and for the wishes of local areas to be considered will be carried forward and actively and unanimously support the CGR for Windlesham. And I look forward to the Camberley Town Council being established and coming forward. Thank you.
Councillor Hough. Councillor.
Thank you. In my admittedly short time as councillor, knocking on doors and speaking with residents, one of the common themes I've picked up on is the disconnect felt with politicians and politics in general, and the feeling that their say doesn't matter. The principle of more powers being devolved locally from central government is a positive step to try and address this. However, it requires detailed discussion and, more importantly, feedback from local residents to reach a consensus on how this takes shape. The fact a decision can be made by one person to cancel elections based on plans which have received no agreement from parish, district and borough councils or the residents they were elected to represent will do nothing but reinforce the perception that local views don't matter and politicians will do as they want. Therefore, it's vitally important that we defend democracy and give residents of Surrey the opportunity to elect representatives in May that they feel are best placed to develop plans in conjunction with local councils, residents and other stakeholders to achieve the best possible outcome and opportunities for our community. Please, let Surrey vote.
No, just a minute. Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Kang, you still want to say something?
Only to say that, thank you, Mayor, sorry, that having new elected councillors, they are normally usually experienced, they usually come from industry, and in the new age of digital revolution, I think they should be new blood and new ideas to run councils, and out with the old and in with the new. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Rice?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of points. I do just want to respond to Councillor Wheeler's comments. Firstly, her attack on the Mayor, yourself and the Deputy Mayor was quite below the belt. Well, it was an attack because
Excuse me.
I will actually just remind Councillor Wheeler that one of her ward colleagues does not live within her ward. And if I was to make the argument that her ward colleague was... may I continue? It's very unfair to make comments with regards to where someone lives. With regards to other points, with regards to what Councillor Wheeler said earlier, I would actually agree with her with regards to the CGR. I think hopefully the CGR does come forward, and I would say that the CGR is going to have much more consultation on it than this proposal for changes to local government in Surrey is going to have. And I must correct the record. It is a decision of one person in Surrey County Council for this. It is an executive function of the leader to request the cancellation of the vote of the elections in May. The vote that took place today was a performative vote asked by the leader of the council to note the report. He could make, the county council leader can make whatever decision he wants with regards to this request. It was not a vote of the council. If the county councillors had voted against him, he still would have gone forward, because Councillor Tim Oliver has been incredibly clear over time of his desire to see a unitary authority in Surrey. He first wanted one massive authority in Surrey, and he knew he wouldn't get it. So he's now changed his position to have two. And I've been in this council long enough to know that the county council has had no interest in consulting with the communities across Surrey. And I include my own community in Deepcut, and I know that Councillor Winner and Councillor Tedder would be equally as outraged if there was no consultation with them. I think we need to be a bit clearer in understanding that if we allow the vote in May to be cancelled, we are taking away the voices of our residents. That is the truth of it. And I just will leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rice. Councillor Garrett?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I first apologise in advance. I'm not feeling 100%, and as my family tell me, I usually get very grumpy and even more sarcastic than normal when I'm not very well. I also didn't prepare a speech, so I've written it as I've sat in the chamber this evening, listened to all the points that we've heard before us. I would also like to echo the leader's comments about the staff being able to pull this all together, and especially Ms Willis for her email on the 30th of December, I think it came in. So thank you for that. Thank you to all the officers for the time and dedication in preparation of the meeting. The government plans to form a strategic authority and then form unitaries below. The government has made it very clear that it wants to move quickly. With the majority they currently hold, this means it's going to happen. It is just a case of when. We had an election in July. The electorate of the UK voted for Labour. And with that in mind, they've effectively voted for the government to take the actions, some of the actions we see before us, including devolving powers to local communities. The government has asked for plans for those interested, which is what the leader of the county council is sending in his letter. The letter sent from the minister on the 16th of December suggested that they were minded to lay secondary legislation to postpone local council elections from May 25 to 26. However, they will only do this where this will help the area to deliver both reorganisation and devolution to their most ambitious mind frame. The key decision we see locally is to decide if we should not put ourselves forward to be part of the first tranche of these councils to join the strategic authorities, hopefully being in control of our own destiny. Locally, the issue of whether the local elections go ahead or not is not ours, it's not Councillor Oliver's, it is the government's. They have made it clear that they will make the decision. We can't. Councillor Oliver is not going to make that decision. But he can't make the decision. The government. Okay.
Excuse me, can we just keep it to the discussion, please? Thank you.
Certainly, Madam Mayor. I liken part of this decision to another similar important decision that I was part of a few years ago. As a school governor, we were in a very difficult situation as far as an Ofsted report goes, and we had the choice. We could either join an academy ourselves, make our own choice, or if the Ofsted report comes in not favourably, the government could decide on choosing the academy that we would join, which at the time was likely to be an academy in the north. We decided to jump before we were pushed. I liken that because this is the sort of decision I see before us today. The more I read the motion and its subsequent amendments, it speaks little about the fact that strategic authorities are coming and how we can work together to make this work, but more about the cancelling of the May elections. If we do move down this route, but still have elections in May this year, and then based on the schedule, which is laid out within the document, we will also have elections in 26 as well. That's what's in the document. It clearly says elections in 26. So if we cancel the ones in 25, if we stick with the ones in 25, there also will be ones in 26. And I think, I've seen it somewhere, it's about 1.2 million per election. I have never made a secret of some of my concerns around decisions that have been made by Surrey County Council. So it can't be said I always agree with what they say. On this occasion, though, I do agree we need to move things forward quickly and do it sooner rather than later. I do, however, have particular concerns about the local voice and the need for parish councils, which is something that is not 100% clear in the actions moving forward. So it's something certainly I will echo other comments that we need to look at. But this is something, certainly something that needs to be addressed. So I'm going to struggle supporting the context of this motion and its amendments, but I will happily listen to the rest of the debate and see where we go from there. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And hopefully I wasn't too grumpy.
Thank you. Councillor Rowland, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Looking at the case Surrey makes to continue to take over the operation of local government in this county, where is the evidence that Surrey are able to provide, as they claim, streamlined and cost-friendly services? I'm quoting. When some of the examples that you had, they provide totally inadequate services and really not up to scratch. So part of the argument they're putting forward is the effectiveness of their entire operation. The fact of Surrey and local government here is the lack of effective cooperation with other parts of the political structure of the county. It's not clear what they would be changing or what would they be producing if they became the same authority. They make references to budgeting pressures, and of course this comes up again and again with the question of who's going to make up for the bankruptcy faced by some parts of the county. In fact, mention was made of Woking, but the finances right throughout Surrey are in a desperate situation, and no really interesting ideas on that have come forward. They make a claim that there's no clarity in the government's budgeting procedures. So I wrote to the Minister about that and had a reply. And in a very interesting letter, he says, I quote here, "We recognise the challenges that local authorities are facing as demand increases in critical services flow in. That is why the provisional settlement was announced of over 700 million additional grant, which is going to be made available for local authorities, in conjunction with the overall settlement of 2 billion. I think the overall increase is something like 3.5%. So this is an important factor that the county are making the case criticising government policy, when in fact the Minister has indicated that Labour are prepared to make sure that there's adequate funding to reinforce any change that actually comes forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowlands. Oh, any? Kevin Thompson. Anybody else? Okay, Councillor. Anyone else? So I've got it on my sheet then. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. This will be fairly quick. For me, this is quite a simple point about the lack of a democratic mandate that will come about if we cancel these elections. And it is a cancellation. It's not a delay. I know some of the language has been used, has talked about a delay and more elections in a year's time. Those elections will be for a completely different body. We will be cancelling the elections for the county council. Any new elections that happen a year later will be for a shadow authority that won't come into power for another year at least. So what we're talking about here is by cancelling the election, we will be extending the term of the existing county councillors by 50%, at least. So they've been voted in for a 4-year term, and they will be serving 150% of that, at least. And that's if everything goes to plan. And I think everybody in this room knows the speed of local government and the speed of change doesn't always go at the optimum pace. Some of my colleagues here tonight have spoken about the performance of county councillors and Surrey County Council. For me, that's irrelevant. At the start of the discussion, Mr. Stevens talked about a change or potential change in the political landscape. For me, that's irrelevant. This is all about, quite frankly, just democratic legitimacy, and it's as simple as that. Thank you.
Can I call you Shashi? Thank you.
Of course you can, Madam. Happy New Year to you and to your family and the rest of the crowd here. I was going to try not to speak today, but I thought it's important some of the councillors who have not been at the last council to understand the background. Because in August, if my memory serves me right, I believe it was somewhere in August of last year, we actually passed a motion in this council because we knew unitary was coming. There was the Conservative government then had a levelling up agenda. Because of that, we passed a motion on the 26th of August 2020. It was almost unanimous. I think there were only 2 abstentions. That fundamentally said that we should try and work with the county council. What we also did at the same time, we actually produced, this council produced a KPMG report and the county produced a PwC report. These reports are still there. The numbers are different, or will be different as of now, because the economic conditions in the country has changed. As even yesterday in the Times, the interest rates are not going to come down in a hurry. So the numbers and the savings, etc., changes. But we never took into account we also talk about in that motion the democratic deficiency. And it was actually dealt as a cross-party. This entire motion on the 26th of August 2020 was a cross-party motion proposed by Alan McLefty and seconded by myself and supported by the entire council. That's the way to go forward. What I can see with the motion here today is pretty divisive. As for the democratic deficiency and the vote, as we all know, as my friend here said, in July of this year, we had an election, and the Labour Party won it hands down with 142 majority. In their manifesto, they were extremely clear. There will be a devolution of power to the counties, to the boroughs, and the entire country. That's what they are doing here. How much ever we scream, it's not within our power. It's not even within Tim Oliver's power, whether the election gets delayed or not. It's in the hands of a minister. If you read that letter very carefully, he actually says, I'm minded, not that he will, he's minded. The elections could be postponed if you apply early. That's exactly what the county has done. This is the principle that I don't think the county has changed its mind. When we did it in 2020, county wanted one unitary. I think they have changed the mind to a two unitary. And we need the devolution now. We can't wait for another 2 years while we have an election, so on and so forth. It gets all delayed. The reason, the fundamental reason, this is where it comes on, the fundamental reason why we put this together, because the finances of not only Borough Council, Surrey Borough Council, but within the Surrey, all the councils and the boroughs and the districts were struggling. And we knew even Surrey Borough Council will find it difficult to actually carry on after, say, 5 to 10 years from that point. So it was important for us to find a solution, hence that cross-party motion was put together. It fell apart, it didn't fall apart, it's still in operation, or that motion is in operation, but the reason it never happened was the Conservative government pulled off from the devolution or levelling up agenda. They did not pull off, they didn't push it forward. They had other things going on, which is crazy. We'll park that to our side. What we have today is a Labour government which is going to make this happen. We have a choice today. We can play politics with it, postpone the election, and the devolution gets postponed, and each and every single borough will suffer financially. And the service we are going to provide to our citizens will fail too. So I would strongly suggest, don't look at the numbers, look at the principles behind the devolution and of the unitary authorities. That has been published in this document. It's a principle, not the accuracy of the numbers. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Shashi. Right, we've got two more. Richard, three. So Richard first, then David. Sorry, I do apologise, I'm calling you by your first names. Is that all right? It's just so used to it. And then Sir Cliff.
Thank you, Mayor. I support this amended motion because this is an attempted coup d'etat. Unpopular Conservatives on Surrey County Council are attempting to steal several years of unelected power from the people of Surrey. They are proposing a fast track to abolishing this council and every other borough council in Surrey. Their proposed timetable envisages all the councils being abolished and new unitary authorities taking over all powers by May 2027. This is insanely optimistic. If you think this can be achieved by then, well, I have a bridge to sell you. This is more likely a 4-year programme than a 2-year one. None of the 90,000 residents of Surrey Heath have been consulted about this. In fact, none of the 1.2 million residents of Surrey have either, except one person, Councillor Tim Oliver, the Conservative leader of Surrey County Council. The timetable requires detailed plans to be submitted by May 2025. This leaves no time to ask the public for their opinions or their consent. Never mind thorough planning and assessment of all the options. All of the 11 borough and district council leaders and 6 of Surrey's MPs are opposed to Councillor Oliver's plan to rush this through. Over 3,000 people have already signed our MP's petition to let Surrey vote. There are some good arguments for unitary councils, such as devolving powers from central government. However, there are problems too. If the lowest level of local government covers 500,000 voters, this makes local democracy too remote from residents and not responsive enough. We need clarity on the government's plans for parish and town councils and time to plan ahead and ensure the public interest is protected. There are even some good arguments for directly elected mayors, including the scrapping of police and crime commissioners. But they should use their powers collaboratively, reflecting consensus, unlike the current leader of the county council. So what was it about cancelling the May elections which first attracted county Conservatives to this proposal? They have a narrow majority on Surrey County Council, which they achieved in 2021 for a 4-year term. This means they have 100% control of the council. Conservatives are very unpopular across Surrey now. They have driven public services into the ground. The SEN provision is uniquely bad. They're closing the family support programme and our recycling centre. Adult social care is in crisis, and the county's potholes are legendary. This reminds me of the time a Tory Prime Minister lied to the Queen in order to prorogue Parliament. He didn't get away with it, and Councillor Oliver shouldn't be allowed to either. He wants power without accountability. They argue that cancelling elections saves money. Well, if you think that elections are costly, wait until you see how expensive it is to have a council not acting in voters' interests. Councillors, we were elected democratically to represent the public. Cancelling elections to suit one unpopular party would be failing the public, and we should raise our voices to prevent this attempted coup d'etat. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Richard. Yeah. Okay, so now is David O'Mahony, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I didn't speak after seconding this amended motion, as the other councillors had covered my thoughts more eloquently. But as this discussion proceeds, I thought it best to reiterate the technical pedantics of the central government paper matters not. Local elections matter. They give communities the power to hold their leaders accountable, to challenge decisions and to demand better. Without them, we risk losing the connection between the people and those who make decisions on their behalf. Cancelling elections sets a dangerous precedent, a precedent where power becomes less answerable to the public and where the voice of the community is silenced. We must remember that the right to vote was not handed to us. It was fought for by ordinary people who demanded their voices be heard. For some to use cost as an excuse to run our own democracy is quite scandalous. The issue at stake is quite easy. You either are democratic or you're not. I would recommend you all support this amended motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Burton.
No longer ennobled, I think. We've heard a lot about the future, so I'm going to start off talking about the past. Surrey, like all English councils, counties, grew into being as an administrative region of the original kingdoms of England. Shot. The actual word Surrey
Just
is
2
derived...
minutes, sorry, Cliff. I forgot to say that if your phone goes, £100 to the Mayor's charity, please.
Hard luck. The word Surrey is derived from the Saxon word Suthridge, meaning South Kingdom, a bit like Essex, East Saxons, Wessex, West Saxons, Sussex, and so on. You get the picture. The area was conquered by the Saxons in the 5th and 6th centuries and was a buffer between the kingdoms of Kent, Essex, Wessex, and Mercia, but was eventually absorbed by Mercia in 825. It was a dark time, the Dark Ages, with Vikings and Danes raiding and battles being fought across coasts and up rivers. Surrey, being inland, largely escaped, but the Danes were defeated at Farnham in 892 by Alfred the Great's son. Chertsey Abbey was founded in 666, and Waverley Abbey was the first Cistercian monastery established in England in 1128. In 1066, William of Normandy, also known as William of dubious parentage, invaded England and was crowned king on Christmas Day, 1066, gaining the more salubrious title of William the Conqueror. He then proceeded to take all lands from their erstwhile owners and distribute it to his cronies. Well, he was king now, after all. Surrey was given to William de Warenne, along with the title Earl of Surrey. At that time, historical Surrey stretched from the northern boundary of the River Thames, from Egham in the west as far as Bermondsey, in what is now southeast London, and south as far as Hazelmere, and west across to East Grinstead in the east. You may recall I had the pleasure of showing you the house I grew up in as a teenager in London. At that time, Croydon's postal address was Croydon, Surrey, much the same as Bromley and Beckenham were definitely in Kent. There have been many changes since then. The last Earl of Surrey died on Tower Hill, one of the final victims of Henry VIII. The earldom still exists, however, as an adjunct to the Duke of Norfolk as the 19th Earl of Surrey, one of 9 other peerages that he holds, along with the titles of Earl Marshal, Chief Butler of England, though I can't see him handing out the wine at dinner. His coat of arms bears the Surrey flag, and here it is, there. Okay? So, we have Surrey, established for a long time. In 1888, the Local Government Act led to the establishment of elected county councils, which took over a number of functions that have been performed by unelected magistrates at quarter sessions. The northeast area of the county, in London, was already under the control of the Board of Works, established in 1856. The first elections were held in January 1889, and Surrey County Council came into being on the 1st of April 1889. It is worth noting that the council met at the Sessions House in Newington near Waterloo, and the first chairman was Edward Lister Penryn, who had been chairman of the magistrates since 1861, so not much change there. Sound familiar? In 1963, the Local Government Act abolished the County of London, and London became the Greater London Council, the GLC, which took over more of North East Surrey, including Richmond, Kingston-on-Thames, Wimbledon and Sutton. But it also transferred in the areas of Staines and Sunbury from Middlesex, which basically ceased to exist. Then in 1974, the Local Government Act of 1972 designated Surrey as a non-metropolitan county, which reorganised the municipal boroughs, urban and rural districts into the 11 non-metropolitan districts we know today and we are standing in. So what's the point of all this, I hear you think? Well, the point is that the government wants to reorganise local government. And I am, after nearly 6 years as a member of this council, all in favour of that. What I'm not in favour of is the attempt by Surrey County Council to not just maintain the status quo, the name, but to actually turn the clock back to medieval times, employing a gerrymandering extinction of democracy by having the arrogance to claim to speak for the whole county in this matter. In 2023, the voters of Surrey Heath ended 48 years of Conservative control of the borough. The latest poll, carried out on the 4th of July 2024, shows that the majority of voters did not vote to maintain the then current political setup. In the general election, they installed 6 Conservatives and 6 Liberal Democrats as MPs. The total votes cast showed Conservatives 202,906 votes, 33.6% of the votes cast, or 22.9% of the electorate, and Lib Dems 213,388 votes, 35.2% of the votes cast, or 21.4% of the electorate. And do not forget Labour and Green Party votes as well. If you want the numbers, I've got them. The general election shows that Surrey County Council do not have a mandate to act on behalf of the residents of Surrey. Does this matter? Of course it matters. The actions of Surrey County Council show that their main interest is maintaining power for themselves by cancelling democracy and rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic of local government. We have a generational opportunity to think outside the confines of the county boundary, established over 1,000 years ago. Parts of Surrey, our part, where we are now, for instance, have more in common with parts of Berkshire and Hampshire than with parts of the Surrey Hills, for example. If we allow Surrey County Council to have control of the process of devolution, then we will not move forward and remain a non-metropolitan area, totally ignoring the strong links and common purpose that exist along the Blackwater Valley, for example, a conurbation that did not really exist properly 20 years ago. Let's not rush into maintaining the status quo within the boundaries of historic Surrey when we should be looking to the future for all our residents and businesses. It is them and their futures that should be the forefront of our deliberations, not those in power wanting to maintain their position, like happened before in 1889, when there was a simple transfer of power from one system to the next with no change in personnel. Rapid, rushed legislation is seldom good legislation. Support the re-elections in May.
Thank you, Sir Cliff. Councillor Thorne. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just conscious a phrase this evening has been used in the Chamber, I think twice, but also online when discussing this topic. It's actually been used out of context, and I feel it only appropriate to obviously advise the Council on its actual meaning. But it's a French phrase, coup d'etat, which this is not. A coup d'etat, according to Britannic, is the sudden, violent overthrow of an existing government by a small group. The chief prerequisite for a coup is a control of all or part of the armed forces, the police and other military elements, of which this is not doing. So I just wanted to add that one to the Chamber, but thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Parrott.
I'm going to sit down. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've witnessed the decimation of democracy in the city I lived in Asia. I'm not going to name it. It is a very traumatizing experience, and I have been through it. I've seen bloodshed, and it's especially in a place you call home. And now I call UK my home. So let's Surrey vote to restore faith in democracy. We know that freedom is not free. We've been through it. People fought for it with blood, sweat, and tears, and continue fighting with it globally. And I mean, I really, really understand that UK is a democratic society. We want to vote, and we want to have our say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. So we've got Valerie, and then we've got Councillor Wheeler. That's it. And then we've got... So this is the order we're going to go into. Councillor White first, then Councillor Wheeler, and then Councillor Skipper, sorry.
I will remain seated since I requested it. I came here tonight not realising we were going to be debating on elections. I thought we were going to be debating how quickly we decide to go ahead with unitaries. And I think we've taken up a lot of conversation with election and we've lost sight of what we're actually discussing here. Apparently, this quote that I'm going to give now was also quoted today at county, unbeknown to me, but it originally came from a Hampshire councillor, in fact, the leader of Hampshire County Council. And it is that this route is one the Labour government is requiring us, Surrey, to take. There is no alternative, and I liken it to travelling in a vehicle where government controls the accelerator and the brakes. Better, therefore, that we, Surrey, have control of the steering wheel rather than leave the route and destination to chance. Better to be in some control of our own destiny. I'm not referring to the elections, I'm referring to unitary and how quickly we go ahead in it. Thank you.
I apologise for that. Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Wheeler, please.
Thank you. Mine is just a point of order. If I can just check, please, and I'm not talking on behalf of Councillor Tedder, who I know wants to speak later, to apologise for having been late, but is it correct that as she's late into the chamber, she won't be able to vote? Could I have a point of clarity on that? Do we need to be in?
Accepted. Right. Okay, so there's no restrictions, so she can vote. Is that clarified? Thank you. Anything else? Right. Councillor Skipper, please.
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor. What is the importance of democracy? According to the United Nations, democracy provides an environment that respects human rights and fundamental freedoms and in which the freely expressed will of people is exercised. I would suggest Surrey County Council to recognise this statement and to think very carefully about before embarking on what can only be described as potentially inappropriate and undemocratic behaviour. I am of an age when I remember listening to family and friends who fought in the First and Second World Wars and all those conflicts in between and after, including myself. Is that right now? Yeah, okay. Including myself. We fought to protect us from tyranny and allow us to live our lives freely. And let's not be forgetting all those families, women, children, and many others left behind to support those on active service. Even at home, over the last 100 years, there were many struggles and hardships to be equally fought against the many injustices inflicted on this great nation and its people by some political, archaic grandees who considered they, that means you and me, ought to know your place. Sadly, there are many in power still think like this, even in 2025. Thankfully, over the years, much has changed as a result of people having made personal sacrifices, not only in those wars and conflicts, but also in the workplace and in the home. Dedicated people and campaign groups ensured that everybody has the democratic right to decide who is fit to represent us and to lead us, for politicians to be honest, transparent, to lead with integrity and be an example of what it is to be a good human in a democratic society and follow the rules of democratic processes for which so many people fought and campaigned for. You may be thinking, what's this all got to do with Surrey County Council, who only want to postpone a vote for a year or two? What does it matter? For me and many others, it really does matter, especially amongst elected councillors representing and leading their communities with high standards and to follow the electoral processes. This is not about the political colour of your flag, at least it shouldn't be. It's not even about the costs to run an election. It's about doing the right thing and to ensure that democracy in Surrey is seen to work. I'll finish where I began. Democracy provides an environment that respects human rights and fundamental freedoms, and in which the freely expressed will of the people is exercised. Surrey County Council should let the residents in Surrey to express that will and to vote in May 2025. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Skipper, and I do apologise. Technology, we can't do anything about it. Maybe you should start speaking more on this side, like here. Right. Anybody else? Okay. Councillor Whitcroft first, and then Councillor Lee. Thank you.
I was merely going to ask a point of information. Do I have the opportunity to sum up the debate on an amendment? Perhaps somebody could confirm that, please.
Right, okay. As earlier, we've changed the standing order that you can speak now, again, if you want to, but Councillor MacDonald will sum up the whole thing at the end. Is that okay? Is that agreed? So if you want to speak now, you may do.
If Councillor MacDonald has the opportunity to sum up at the end, I'm happy to leave that function to him. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Lee, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Forgive me remaining seated, given the offer. I don't feel particularly great. I wasn't going to speak this evening. I was just sitting quietly, which is unusual for myself. There's a couple of things that spring to mind, which I think worry me deeply. We're putting a price on democracy. There have been a number of figures bandied around by agents, shall we say, of the administration in Surrey County Council claiming different costs for running an election. If we rumble back to 2017, you'll remember that the then Conservative government called a general election at a whim, which cost many, many millions of pounds in the name of democracy. I supported having that election because it'd been democratically called and scheduled. We rumble forward to July when there was a general election, which again fully supported. The Labour government won a stonking majority. Whether you agree with that or not, I think that's perhaps one thing that myself and Conservative colleagues do agree on. We would have preferred a different outcome, but that's the outcome. We stood by it. There was then a petition trying to overturn that democratic vote and a will of the people by calling for another general election, which would have been ridiculous and a complete waste of money because they were democratically elected. We roll forward to today, and there was 2 meetings at Surrey County Council where we then have the leader of the council, the whim of his own pen, asking the government, and bearing in mind the leader of the council asked, so he has a choice here, to suspend that election indeterminately. So my reading of that is if it's done indeterminately, then it's pretty much cancelled. And then you have various people arguing, well, it's going to save money. And I go back to what Councillor Noble and Councillor Skipper in particular had said. People lost their lives for the right to vote in our democracy. If we are starting to put a price on democracy, we are stepping slowly towards those despot regimes that we have spent centuries opposing. I urge everyone, defend democracy here in Surrey, as those people that lost their lives to enable us to have that democracy. And for those countries around the world where they still struggle to have democracy.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Anybody else? I am very conscious of those of councillors who are not well. I do appreciate. Thank you for attending, and so I'm going to try and make it quick. Anybody else? Okay, right. If that's it, Councillor MacDonald, would you like to exercise your right?
Thank you, Mayor. I will stand up, a force of habit. But before I do my summing up, and I apologise to the Chief Executive for doing this to him, but I would like a couple of officer clarifications, which we agreed were part of the process tonight. So I've got 3 points that I think are worth trying to get clarity for the members on that have come up from various sides of the chamber. One is from his understanding of the conversations and the paperwork that he's seen, if Surrey is put on the fast track process, when the election date would be for mayors, and when his understanding is the election date would be for unitaries. I'll maybe start with one. I'll do one at a time, maybe in interest of clarity for the members and yourself.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Leader. I'm quite happy if you want to pose the other two questions while I dig through my notes for that, just to make sure I'm completely correct.
If that's easier for you, Mr. Stevens, no problem at all. The second clarification that I think is worth having from an apolitical stance is whether the leader of Surrey County Council has to write this letter, or whether he doesn't have to write the letter. Of course, is the flip side of that. The third question is relates to the understanding of the Surrey County Council processes in terms of the in terms of the approval of this letter. There's obviously been some points made that this vote was binding. My understanding from colleagues, but also from communications I've seen, including from third hand from the monitoring officer of Surrey County Council, is in fact this is an executive power that resides in the leader's office alone. Sorry, just like that clarified.
To soothe me out. Well, while we're waiting for Mr. Stevens to dig up his answer, I just want to say that the mayor's role kept on coming up. So let me just tell you, there are some past mayors here, and believe me, it is a very, very, very energetic and enjoyable role, as you would all agree. Yeah, Valerie, Pat, Helen, and I have really enjoyed myself. And don't forget, every time I go out, I do say that I am a mayor of Surrey Heath, not a councillor, not a Sarbikang or anything like this, mayor of Surrey Heath. So I do go out and represent Surrey Heath, and I have enjoyed it. It's been hard, but that I'm going to leave it till May to tell you all about it. Be prepared. But otherwise, it's been very enjoyable. So I don't really want that role going either. So start thinking, all of you who wants to stand as a mayor. And I'm looking at Sir Cliff. Sorry, I'm not picking up on you. Secondly, sorry, I also wanted to just let you know that Natalie is here. Those of you who haven't seen, she's obviously welcomed, I should have welcomed her earlier, to the first meeting. It's very enjoyable, isn't it? Welcome, and look forward. Don't say you're not coming to the next ones, please keep on coming. So, I don't think he's got his guitar with him today. And I'm sorry, are we ready?
think so.
We're ready now for Mr. Stevens. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Leader, going back to your questions, in relation to the dates for votes, I don't have a complete answer, but my understanding is that if we were committed to mayoral devolution, the elections to take place in May 26. I cannot find through the notes that I've got here, and I would not wish to get it wrong, whether that would relate to the mayoral elections or the elections for unitary. So apologies, but I will continue to dig through and provide clarity on that. The second question you raised was, does the leader of Surrey County Council have to write a letter requesting a postponement to the election? Is that correct? Yes. My understanding is no, he does not have to do that. But clearly, if there was an aspiration to move forward through the fast-track devolution programme, there are two choices there. One is to postpone the election. As I understand it from webinars that we have attended, there is still an option to be part of that priority programme, even with the presence of county elections in May. The process of approval was the third point that you asked for clarity on. Ultimately, it is down to MHCLG and the Minister to consider whether or not they are in agreement that those elections should be postponed. I believe that answers the third question.
Yeah, sorry, thanks for the clarification on the ministerial piece. That's right. So if the letter goes in, then the minister gets to consider it. And we've been told, for the benefit of members, we should hear by the end of the month, or in our case, hopefully not here because we won't put the letter in. But it was more around the understanding of the Surrey County Council process for approving this letter. Obviously, some members felt that a vote had been taken and that was binding, etc., etc. My understanding from communications I've seen, it's entirely an executive function of the Leader's office.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I believe you are correct. Yes, it is very much.
Thank you. I think, Mayor, just with your forbearance, because this is such an important topic, and that's why we're having an extraordinary council. I don't know whether, with respect to any of those clarifications the officer has provided, to the best of his knowledge, any members wish to come back in. Seeing as you've suspended standing orders, I probably can get away with that.
No, is it just one? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just, it's not a controversial thing. I'm trying to answer a question Sean McDonald raised. I watched the debate today of the County Council, and according to my understanding of it, the motion is noted, which means I presume it's an executive function to write that letter. I understand the letter is going to go out to the Minister by this Friday, the 10th. He is making one amendment, again, just watching, and I'm repeating what I heard. He is going to make one amendment to his existing letter, which he has circulated to all members, to say that he would be asking the Minister to relook at, or to look at the loans within the county, within the borough councils. That is some amendment he was going to do to his letter before it goes out. This is what I heard at the county council meeting. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Sean, would you like to?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. First of all, thank you very much. Oh, sorry, Councillor Garrett, I'll give way.
I was just picking up on the point reference whether the leader of county has to send a letter or not. And I'm just reading the letter from the Minister, and my reading of it is a little bit different. So it could be semantics, to be honest with you. But it clearly states in the letter from the Minister dated the 16th of December, you received it. I've just missed it, haven't I? The government's long term to help deliver these aims, given as much interest. I will I am writing now to all councillors in 2 years and neighbouring. I've lost it. There is one at the beginning, but there's also one at the end. I welcome your views on any matters raised in this letter as set out above. I will require a clear commitment to delivering both reorganisation and devolution to the most ambitious time frame. Now, there is another comment within the upper part of the letter which clearly says, I would like you to write to me, which I think was your question. So the letter from the Minister does say, can you write to me? Yes, but he wants, yes, exactly. If you want to be on the fast track, can you write me a letter?
Mr. Stevens is going to answer that. Yep.
If I may, Madam Mayor, thank you. Sorry, Councillor Garrett, you are correct. So ultimately, they've set a deadline of the 10th of January for authorities to opt into the devolution priority programme. But that doesn't mean that we would need, or rather, county would have to request to postpone the elections.
Does that answer? Sorry. Is that okay? Perfect. Right. Any more questions before I get
Just one question, just following on from that point then. As Mr. Stevens just mentioned, with regards to being involved in the priority programme, that is a choice. Is there also a choice to not be part of the priority programme, but still be part of a wider devolution programme that would come at a later date?
Yes.
Right. Does everybody got clarifications? You sure? Thank you. I'm only getting one person answering that, so which means that we all agree. Members, do we agree? Thank you. Councillor MacDonald, would you like to say?
I would. Thank you, Mayor. Again, thanks very much, everybody, for your contributions. I hope that was maybe helpful, because there are a few. As Councillor Garrett in his grumpy state, and by the way, I get grumpy in your state as well, has mentioned, it's about as clear as mud. I think it's important to note, because this letter of the 16th has come up a couple of times now, that there was a call with Baroness Taylor, with the chief executives and the leaders of the various councils before Christmas, and it was quite a good session. There were lots of questions asked. There's a Q&A document that came out afterwards that also helped clarify things. What I think members should be aware of is that we ended up getting called into another session this week at short notice, with 3 or 4 days notice into our diaries, both the chief executive and myself, and the other members, actually, the other leaders and chief executives, pretty much to a man and woman, attended the same session together while we were in Epsom. And I think that's something in itself, that we had 2 ministerial calls within a fairly short space of time, when you reflect on the fact that there was obviously all the holiday periods and everything else in between. It was clear that they wanted to reinforce to us that they hadn't entirely been clear the first time in the letter of the 16th. And listen, that's fair enough. I think we kind of understand that. What my takeaway was from those interactions is that there is a priority programme that councils can have an option to join. The principles are that you already have a good alignment within your county or your strategic area. Concepts around the £1.5 million for the strategic areas, and obviously the greater than £500,000 for the unitaries. I think the key point is that Surrey isn't there. Surrey just isn't in that place. We don't know how this £5 billion is going to be handled, specifically the £1 billion write-off that's coming down the tubes at some point for Woking. We don't have consensus, and it's not because people don't want to move into unitaries. There's not any appetite to disengage from the process. It's just we haven't started that journey. We haven't had a process to start that journey. And I would really urge members, and I know we all come at this from different perspectives and different backgrounds, to just reflect on that when we really don't know where we're going, it doesn't make sense to rush into something. We don't have to be in the first phase of a dozen or so counties. There are many, many other areas that will follow in the second and third waves. And what that does is it gives us an opportunity to understand how this process works better, to understand the implications for our residents, to understand how we can influence these things to their benefit. There have been some comments about the motion. I genuinely and sincerely, both in the initial version and with the help of my friend and colleague, Councillor Whitcroft and others, tried to make this motion as inclusive as possible, because it is so important to our residents that we get this right. And I cannot speak more highly than the contribution by Councillor Skipper behind me, who has spoken from the heart about the importance of democracy and the sacrifices made, as has Councillor Perrott as well, from her experience in other jurisdictions that obviously were part of the wider British Commonwealth over the years. So I do find it very strange that members would consider allowing their support to go for the cancellation of elections, whether they be county councillors or borough councillors here, because whilst it is fairly clear that the mayoral elections on the fast track programme would be, if all other things considered, be in May 2026, there is no clarity on when the unitary elections would be. So these county council members who have been there for quite a period of time, whose mandate is literally in the last sands in that little clock that we all use for the egg timer, it's coming to the end, and it can't be an open checkbook, not when democracy is at stake. So I really think people should reflect on that. Now, I think it's an open secret that I knock on a lot of doors. I knock on a lot of doors in the borough. I've knocked on a lot of doors in other parts of the country. And I can honestly tell you, whether I have to put my hand on the Quran, the Bible, any of the other sacred texts that people, or make some other vow, that independent of the person I come across on the doorstep, and what I perceive to be their voting intentions, I encourage them to vote. It is so important. Young, old, whatever colour of skin, it is just so important for a vibrant democracy that happens. Lucky enough, it doesn't seem to have impacted any of the elections I've been knocking on doors. But I have, tried to encourage people to vote. We already have a low voting percentage in this country, and it continues to drop. We already have scepticism about our politics in this country, and we need to move on from that. And one of the ways we move on from that is to continue to have a vibrant democratic process. Listen, we know that the people fought for the vote. I think Councillor Noble gave us a nice history lesson, though I do think Councillor Betton also took us a bit further back. We know in our hearts of hearts how hard people had to vote. And yes, originally it was just for free persons, and then it was of any standing without property. Then it was about, obviously, females. Then it was also about other people of different backgrounds. It's just so important to us, and we should, as members, make sure that we keep that sacred. I just want to give a further bit of clarity, and actually before that I better just take a process check. Is there a time limit on summing up, folks? Or because we suspended standing orders, I can go where I like. Thank you. I won't go too long, but I've got a few things I wanted to say. Please, yeah, please do, yeah.
Point of clarity, really. You mentioned, and I'm not being disrespectful, I can't remember her name, Baroness, and Q&A, which you received back afterwards. I know you've told me many times if it's available, I can ask for it. can I ask that all councillors, if it's able to do so, can all councillors have a copy of that? Because we've not seen that, but we've seen a letter that you're telling.
Listen, no problem. Listen, myself and the Chief Executive have generally tried to do the best we can, and he can probably vouch for it, where it's like, well, give them that, what about giving them that? You know, so there's no problem with that, Councillor, from my point of view, provided we're not breaking any confidentiality from the Minister's side. So there's definitely a Q&A there that you can look at, but that would have been the one from the 16th, or the call around the 16th. There'll be another one coming in the next few days. And I guess linked to that as well, I mentioned, you know, that no impediments, a clear focus within the area affected, and also a clear view on the identity of community. Listen, I know, again, going back to the principle of today's debate, in August, we were asked to contribute to an expression of interest around this, around devolution, actually, rather than local government review. And I accept the people that commented on what was in the manifesto. I think it mentions devolution, it's not mentioned local government review, it never mentioned unitarisation, and it never mentioned some of these other parameters around it. But that's fair enough, as we've all agreed. Keir and the gang can do what they like with the majority. So in August we were asked for an expression of interest. Councillor Oliver was kind enough to put that out to the districts and boroughs and allow us to contribute. And what we more or less said was, we don't quite know what this looks like. We don't quite know what our options are, and we don't potentially know who our partners are as well, because the strategic authority really needs to be bigger than Surrey. We are not big enough. We will not have a big enough elbows at that table when you compare us to Andy Burnham and the rest. So that was agreed within the district and boroughs leaders. However, I think one of our concerns is that nobody actually ever saw what went in. And that sort of plays a little bit with the discussions of the last few days, and maybe some things we've seen, as my colleague Councillor Wilson mentioned, on family support. There's another one on the Surrey Environmental Partnership, where transparency and openness have not been all that they could be. So I think I've shared that with you just because it's an indication that we've been trying to engage constructively in this journey. This letter going in to join the fast track programme and to cancel the elections is a decision of leader of Surrey County Council. And if he does so, and you can see obviously, as Councillor Wheatler mentioned, there was a advisory vote today at council. If he decides to do it, then he doesn't do it with any of the support from the districts and boroughs. And remember, that's 1 Conservative controlled, 2 independent controlled, other ones with rainbow coalitions, including many independents, and obviously some like ourselves, predominantly Liberal Democrat. The one thing that we all agreed on is the importance of these elections, that they go ahead for our residents and to make sure they get properly represented. So there is no date for the unitary elections, so that's a concern. It shouldn't be open. I really genuinely think, and we've had some very weak answers from the ministerial team or their cohort around this, I really don't think they've thought through the implications on towns and parishes and how we bridge that gap between unitaries, large unitaries that are looking for, and our local communities. We have some really historic towns in this country that we should all be very proud of. I'm lucky enough to have visited them quite a few with my various roles, and obviously for personal reasons as well. And it just can't be right that everything, that in the process of devolving, we actually suck a load up as well and miss out those local people. So I would urge you to consider that as well. So yes, it is about the Magna Carta. Yes, it is about the sacrifices that people made. We do want to engage as leaders in a constructive process, but we have to have some idea where we're going and what the opportunities are. And at this stage, it's not the right moment for Surrey to jump on the train, because we don't know where the points are going to take us. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all for your contributions. And if we could let Surrey vote, I'd be much appreciative.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. So please bear in mind, I do agree, vote, and we are here for the residents and their right to vote. So, Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to request a named vote.
I was just going to get to that. I know we're ready to go home. Thank you. I would like to now move to the vote on that. Now, you wanted, obviously, a named vote. So I need 3 councillors to request. Okay. 4. I've got 4. Right. Yeah. Okay. We'll get a named vote. Miss Willis will read out your names and will need to indicate whether you are voting in for or against the motion or abstaining. Over to you, Ms Willis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, as the Mayor said, yes, if you could say whether you're in favour, against or abstaining, please. So, Councillor Cliff Betton.
In favour.
Councillor Kel Finan-Cook.
In favour.
Councillor Lisa Finan-Cook. In favour. Councillor Sean Garrett.
Abstaining.
Councillor Mary Glowett.
In favour.
Councillor Julie Hode. In favour. Councillor Dave Hoff.
In favour.
Councillor Nirmal Kang.
In favour.
Councillor Sabi Kang.
In favour.
Councillor Rob Lee.
For a democratic election.
Councillor Sean MacDonald.
In favour.
Councillor Sashimar Vaganam.
Abstain.
Councillor Liz Noble.
In favour.
Councillor David O'Mahony.
In favour.
Councillor Jonathan Quinn.
In favour.
Councillor Murray Rowlands.
In favour.
Councillor Morgan Rise.
In favour.
Councillor John Skipper.
In favour.
Councillor Pat Tedder. Councillor Josh Thorne.
Abstain.
Councillor Kevin Thompson.
In favour.
Councillor Ying Tong Perrott.
In favour of the democracy.
Councillor Victoria Wheeler.
Abstain.
Councillor David Whitcroft.
For.
Councillor Helen Whitcroft.
For.
Councillor Valerie White.
Abstain.
And Councillor Richard Wilson.
In favour.
Okay, I have the results. 21 for, none against, and 6 abstain. So we carry the motion forward. Okay, right. Thank you so much.
Just before you close the meeting, I apologise for the lateness of my arrival.
Thank you. You didn't miss much. Okay. Right. Yes. Thank you very much for all of you and the officers to bringing all this to the date to today. I know it was very hard, and we were all relaxing and everything, and then all of a sudden you get a phone call to say you're going to be. Do you agree or not? But it was very important. We are doing it for our residents. Shouldn't forget that. And it is very important, and it's a vote we're going for. Thank you so much. I won't keep you any longer. Do enjoy the rest of your night, evening, whatever you want to call it. And see you next time. Thank you very much. And hope those who are not feeling well, get well soon.